Hi everyone, welcome back to our part out series. Today we are on day 9 where we will be discussing all about org branding and personalization of your org on Pardot. So a quick introduction about me. I am Sahil Thatrak. I have been working as an Salesforce architect with Eternus Solution and I have been in the Salesforce domain for 8 years now. I am a Salesforce enthusiast and an adventure seeker. And you can always go ahead and follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn on these IDs. So the agenda for today is understanding of branding and personalization. Right now, as a part of that, what we are going to cover today is configuring tracker domains and vanity URLs in Pardot. And along with that, we are also going to take a look at how we can go ahead and create email sending domains to help us out with the entire process. Now, what basically are custom tracker domains in Salesforce, right? So first and foremost, what we will need to understand is what a tracker domain is and what a vanity URL is. So there are a lot of features and functionalities in Pardot that help us drive business and customer engagement, like creating links, hosting forms, landing pages, and much more. When these features are made live, they are associated with a URL on the internet. Now, when these features are developed and uploaded using Pardot and made live, they are associated with a URL which is Pardot's own URL. Now, one thing to remember over here is that these URLs that would be generated are completely unique, and are unique from one instance to other. Now, custom tracker domains and vanity URLs that are being uh, done or developed over here is to ensure a great customer experience and drive business. But if the customer sees the Pardot's URL or the domain with all of these details in it, then it is not really a great customer experience for him, right? And that's where we start to tend to lose that touch with the customer. So to mask out these customer facing URLs, right? What we do is we go ahead and create this custom tracker domains and vanity URLs in our ecosystem. Right? So now what we are going to do is we are going to go ahead to Pardot and take a look at how we can actually go ahead and configure the entire custom tracker domain and vanity URL aspect. So if we move ahead to our Pardot environment, you would see that over here I am logged in as the Pardot admin, so I have access to the Pardot setting tabs. So the custom tracker domains and vanity URLs are basically going to help us mask these URLs and basically give a better overall experience to the customer. Now, if I have to do that and I have to go ahead and configure these domains, what I basically have to do is I have to log in as the Pardot admin and navigate over to the Pardot setting tab. In the Pardot setting tab, what we are going to do is we are going to move on over to the domain management section. Now, before we head on into this, there's a bit of understanding that we need to get over here, right? Now, what I have already shared with you, right, is how the URLs are currently done and what kind of URLs and domains and URL masking currently happens. Now, to give again a better customer experience, it is really important for us to set up these tracker domains and these vanity URLs in Pada. Now, basically, what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and configure that. For that, we are going to scroll down over here to the tracker domain section and then click on add tracker domain. Now over here, we are going to go ahead and specify what domain is it going to be and where this basically tracker domain is going to point to, right? Now, let's say over here, I have an organization and I have my own website, which is Share to Grow, which is hosted on a DNS server, which is currently being used by me and my team. I'll just go ahead and enter that domain, right? So I just go ahead, put in share2grow.info, and then I'll click on create a tracker domain. Give it a moment to refresh. Now, as you can see, the tracker domain or the custom tracker domain is created over here, but it is not really validated, right? And we'll come back to that aspect in a moment. Now, what it is basically saying over here is that the tracker domain is created in the system, but it has not yet been validated. Now, the next bit is where you would need a bit of help from either your IT team or the team that is hosting the entire DNS server, right? And what they are basically going to do in this part is they are basically going to go ahead and create a CNAME record. Now, then once the CNAME record is created, what it is basically going to ask you is what the CNAME record is, right? Now for that we have already put down those details, which is share to grow.info. That is my CNAME record and that is what is supposed to showcase. And the second aspect that it is going to ask us while configuring these details is where it is supposed to point to. Now what we are doing over here, we are trying to mask the go.pardot.com, which is our domain that is currently being used, with the share to grow .info domain. So that is where it is going to go ahead and point to. Now these two are the important aspects in configuring tracker domain. Now basically once you have done with it, what it is saying is that it is not able to find this tracker domain on the server, right? So if you just go ahead and try to click on validate, it will show that it is not validated and it will still show you the same key, right? Now the reason for that is because there is a second level of setting that is required over here, right? Now this second level of setting is more of a security setting that is associated with this key. So what we'll go ahead do is we'll basically go ahead and copy this key and have it shared with the IT team or the team that is hosting the DNS server. Now, what they need to do is basically there needs to be a text record on the DNS server with this validation key that will ensure security. Right? And what do I mean by that? So, whenever we are looking at this custom domain, there is a need for an additional level of security that is enabled by Pardot through this validation key. So, this is an additional level of security that will enable Pardot to identify that it is a unique owner of the entry that we just did on the DNS server, right? This is going to help avoid all of those phishing attacks, all of those spoofing attacks that usually happen on site. And that is where the security layer and the security aspect comes into play. Now, once that is done, the tracker domain will get validated similar to the ones that we see over here. It will show up the validation key. It will show up that the status is updated to validated. And once you have validated it, you can actually go ahead and set a domain as your primary domain, right? So over here we already have gone ahead and set this domain up as our primary. So if we go ahead and take a look at the landing page URLs or any kind of custom assets that you have created with all of these landing pages or domains or URLs, they will get updated with your new custom domain or with your new custom tracker domain, and your vanity URLs will show up accordingly. And basically that is how you are actually going to go ahead and configure this entire custom tracker domain in your Pardot environment. Now if we go ahead to the next aspect, right, which is uh, basically send creating an email sending domain. What we are going to understand in terms of this aspect is what exactly is an email sending domain, what it is being used for, and what are the benefits of using it, right? So let's head on back to our Pardot environment. Let's go back to our Pardot dashboard. Now in this custom email sending domain, we are going to learn a couple of things, right? So the basic need as to why this needs to be set up is to enable Pardot to send emails on behalf of your domain, right? Now, before sending out any email via Pardot, it is important to complete this step. The reason being that Pardot as a client can send out emails, but without this setting, it won't be able to send it out with authority. So what do I mean by that, right? So in a nutshell, if Pardot wants to send out an email without the configuration being done, it will likely end up in the spam folder. And you can actually go ahead and test this out by, sending out dummy emails to your own email address through Pardot without actually confirming this configuration or this setting. Now, to configure this, what we are going to do is we are again going to go over here to the Pardot setting. Another thing to note is again I'm logged in as the pardot administrator, so I have access to this pardot setting. Now we are going to go ahead and head on over to the pardot setting, and we are going to head on over to the domain management. So again, this falls under the same org branding and domain management aspects, right? So uh, now what we are going to do is, if you see over here below section, we have already worked on the custom tracker domains. Now what we are going to do is we are going to go ahead and sign up for an email sending domain. Now before we do that, let's take a quick look at what needs to be done. So when you land onto the domain management section, you will have to go ahead and click on the add new domain button, and it will show up the create domain section. Now over here it clearly states that enter the domain name after the @ symbol in your email address. For example, if your email address is info@pardot.com, then basically go ahead and enter pardot.com. So if we take a look at what we had as a part of our domain below over here, which is share to grow.info, I'm going to go ahead and configure the same. So I'll just go ahead and type out share to grow.info, and now this is basically going to help me configure that domain. Now again, the domain purchasing and the IT team management section and the DNS or domain hosting and everything would be done by your domain team. So again, there will be a bit of involvement from their end too, right? Now what we are going to do is we are going to go ahead and click on create domain. Give it a second to load. And the moment you do that, you would see that there are three errors that are showing up, right? Now let's actually take a look at what these errors are, right? So if we click a look, click on the expected DNS entries, it will show you three specific errors, right? Which is the SPF, the domain key policy, and the domain key. Now, an SPF or a sender policy framework recording DNS is basically used to identify specific email servers that are allowed to send emails on the behalf of your domain, right? This is specifically done to avoid spam senders to send emails with forged from address from your domain. So if there has been ever an attack through your domain where people basically go ahead and send out emails with a spoofed or a forged email address or a forged email domain which looks similar to yours, this is basically going to go ahead and avoid that, right? And next, in terms of domain key policy and domain keys, basically domain keys identified email or the DKIM is a technical standard that helps protect email senders and recipients from spam and spoofing and phishing, right? It's a form of email authentication that allows an organization to claim responsibility for a message in a way that can be validated by the recipient. Now, the domain key uses domain text record, which is used to separate itself from the public key. At this time, it is showing an error because it can't find it on the server. Right? So what we are going to do is basically we are going to pass over these details to our IT team or the DNS server hosting team. And once these details are configured in the DNS server or your email server, the next step for us is basically to go ahead and click on check DNS entries, right? And once the configuration has been completed, you would see that the details are verified over here. Now we have one verified SPF, but we still have two errors. So when you face such an issue, the only thing that you need to do is you have to just click on the error, and it will show you exactly what is the domain, what is the expected entry, and what was the actual entry done by you, right? So basically this helps the entire pardot to get a configured custom email domain up, right? Now after this, what the next step, once you have done this configuration and sorted out these emails, what in terms of pardot will is basically going to do is that the pardot will go to the server and query if it can uh, find these configurations. And once these configurations are found by pardot, similar to the SPF verified, even the other domain key policies and the domain keys are going to get verified and they will show up over here, right? So once the DNS records are added, uh, all of these details basically help you configure the custom email domains, right? Once this is done, you will be able to basically generate emails in Pardot and send them out on behalf of your domain, and it will contain all the necessary information to pass any kind of spam filters or phishing filters or any kind of other filters that are going to hold back your emails from reaching your target customers, right? Also, another real important thing that you need to remember over here is that if your part or if your organization is using multiple domains to send out emails or to reach out to customers, then all of those multiple domains need to be configured over here in your custom email sending domain section, right? So that all of those are accounted for and none of your emails actually get sent out to spam, right? And with that, what we have done is we have basically covered all the topics that we had for today. So if you want any additional details regarding any aspects that we have discussed, any steps that need to be configured on the DNS server, all of those details are available on help.salesforce.com. So if you feel, please go ahead, have a look. All the documentation is quite elaborate and robust to help you get through the entire configuration process. And if you have any other queries or any questions, you already have my handles. You can feel free to reach out to me or the team anytime that you feel, right? Thank you so much for your participation and hope this really becomes helpful for you.